Joining me today is Connie Bennett, author of I Blew My Diet, Now What? The easy, proven 21-day plan to drop pounds and bounce back boldly. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle is challenging, even without factoring in devastating losses or significant life changes. But when these events, such as the death of a loved one, a difficult divorce, or another trauma, surface, it can be quite challenging for many health conscious people to eat healthily. Bestselling author, health journalist, certified health coach, and life coach Connie Bennett experienced this unexpected setback when her mother died from cancer. Realizing that even the most resolute health advocates are susceptible to falling off the wagon, she dove into the research for more than 7 years to discover why she and millions of others eat so poorly. She's been featured by hundreds of media outlets, which include Time, CBS News, Sunday Morning, Oprah, Women's Health, Forbes Health, and many more. Welcome to the show, Connie. Nice to have you on today.
Thank you so much, Kathryn.
Okay, so here you are, you're the health expert. A trauma happens, your mother dies, and then that's the trigger, and that's what precipitates you to start eating again and gain 20 pounds, which happens to a lot of us. And we don't even have to have, as I said, I guess in the beginning, that kind of a crisis. So what do we do, or how do we prevent us kind of slipping back when these crises happen, or when other triggers happen to us that cause us to start eating again and in an unhealthy way, gaining weight?
Well, let me just back up for a minute. So
Okay.
I was a recognized sugar and carb expert, author of 2 books,
Okay.
Sugar Shock and Beyond Sugar Shock. And yes, I had a really difficult final year with my mother, and I pigged out like crazy. And I was mortified because I'm supposed to know better. And for months, I just stuffed my face with what I call carb garbage. And that led me to go, wait a minute, if I, of all people who know better, have these kinds of problems, what about all the millions out there? And so basically, I've been on this mission for years now, more than 7 years, to discover why do people eat so badly. And so I've uncovered 21 reasons. So really, the first step to discovering why fell off the bandwagon, so to speak, or the clean eating bandwagon, is to just discover why. And that's basically what I did.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that, why and why we do it. I think one of the things that we do that you emphasize, I guess, we ditch our diets because once we start doing that, we get this kind of like, what the hell attitude. I've done it. I'm gaining weight. I can't stop. So, what the hell? I'm going to just keep on eating. That is one of the things I think that I know I've done that in the past. And I know a lot of friends, colleagues, that's what happens. I've done it. They give up.
That was a fascinating research that I found. Now, I called it what the hell. Researchers have another name for it. But the point is, yeah, once you have a few bites of that, junk food that, you've been trying to stay away from, it can just open the floodgates for more. And what you need to do in that instance is go, wait a minute, I don't need to give up my power. And that's really a lot of what I'm about, my message is now, that we don't have to give up our power to these junk foods. And instead, we can adopt an attitude of, I can control this. And there's actually research that suggests that even when you make that definitive decision that you are going to eat better, that you have the control, that you can make those choices, that can change your behavior.
Right. So you talk about, okay, that can change your behavior. It empowers you rather than giving up and making you the victim of all these foods, I guess is maybe what you're saying, right? You're
Very
not a
good
victim.
point. Yes,
Yeah.
very, very good point. Yes.
Okay.
You want to move from that victim role into the, hero role, I guess.
Yeah. So what are the 4, let's talk about, you mentioned 4 in the book, 4 big binge triggers. What are
Yes.
they?
So, as I mentioned, there's 21 reasons that I've identified that people eat badly. The 4 big binge triggers, the first one is the death of a loved one. And that was my entrance to this whole, a topic that I did what I call heartbreak binging after losing my mother. The second one is what I call, so there are millions of caregivers. So I call that you could do caregiving chomping. Now, another big one with all the millions of people getting divorced or breaking up, that can lead to binging, a type of binging, breakup binging, or divorce devouring. And then the fourth big binge trigger is that you've gone through a trauma, and that could lead to what I call comfort crunching. Okay. But there are 17 other reasons. And I really have to say that the single biggest reason that people overload and numb out on junk foods is temptation. We are besieged by a barrage of enticing packaged ultra-processed food concoctions. So, hey, I mean, it's certainly not surprising that Americans get about 80% of their total calories from ultra-processed foods and beverages, high in energy, saturated fat, sugar, and salt. And these are the kinds of industrial formulations that contain ingredients you would not use in your kitchen.
So if you went to the grocery store, obviously, or you go to the supermarket and all that stuff is there, one way you could stop that is just order on Instacart all the time and not go in. I'm teasing, but you don't go to the grocery store.
No, it's actually a very good point. I mean, you literally could do most of your shopping online for staples. And I'm a big fan of farmers markets. I don't, in most parts of the country, you can get that. But there are places that you can buy healthy foods and not have to leave your house. But the other part of it is that you have to have a mindset of that. You have to have not only a mindset that you can do it, but you also have to be driven what I call goal power plus. In other words, a lot of people talk about willpower, I don't have the willpower. Well, what I'm encouraging you instead is to be driven by, what are your goals? Do you want to have the energy to play with your loved ones, or to play with your kids? Do you want to have the energy to, let's just say, get intimate with your sweetie? Do you want to be able to focus so that you do an amazing job at work? What is it you really, really want? I mean, not that bag of potato chips. Like, what are your really, really big goals? And when you're driven by those big goals, that will sustain you in a much greater way than having willpower in that moment.
Well, the other is immediate gratification, isn't it? You grab the nearest thing that tastes good and feels good. This is not succumbing to that, it seems to me. What you're saying is, have a goal. What is your goal? Take a breath and think about it.
I do have actually some interesting tactics that discuss the power of breath too. I mean, because the reality of this situation is we are going to be tempted. And I think once we go into that, once you are aware of that and you go into a situation or you go out into the world, you know that you will be tempted. And that's why I sought to arm people with some what I call feasts, fast, easy, awesome, simple, tested strategies that they can use in the moment. I mean, the junk foods jungle, we're accosted by fast, easy, convenient temptations. Well, let's have some fast, easy, convenient tactics that we can use when we're out there in the junk foods jungle.
I'm looking back. You mentioned the 4 or 5 triggers for eating. Whether divorce or death of a loved one or a caregiver, all of those things, which you don't necessarily have control over.
Right.
But you mentioned being powerful, having power by not eating all this junk food and all this bad stuff, that gives you power because you're in a situation where you may feel powerless. So if you sort of define this as, well, this is my power. I have control over this.
Each time like when I was after months of, pigging out on carbs, each time that I then said no gave me ammunition to be able to do it the next time. And you get a feeling of power and confidence and self-assurance and excitement that, wow, you don't have to cave into temptation. And I
Yeah.
actually have I have a TEDx talk that I recently did to help people to tune out temptation so that you'll eat better. But you want to eat better in order to feel better. I think that seems to be people seem to have a disconnect. Like they focus on that particular food. And the reason that why do we want to eat better? We want to eat better so we'll feel better. So we'll be better.
Yeah.
And once
And,
we have, sorry.
I think that, no, I think that's critical because if you really think about that, after, like, if you eat junk, think about how you feel after you've eaten it. I mean, and then think about how you feel after you've eaten something that's healthy. Very different. And I think as one ages, it even gets more exaggerated. Because
Yes.
that, yeah, I mean, that junk food really does have a terrible impact on one's body. And you, um,
And there's just tons of research. I mean, it just keeps you, I can't even keep up with all the research, but the research definitively suggests, proves that if you eat too many ultra processed carbohydrates, and I call it garbage, and sugar, that could lead to cancer, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, and a whole slew of other diseases. So is it worth it to have that piece of cake that you're, jonesing for? Or do you want to have good health?
Yeah, and I know one thing that I do is I have this sort of like I didn't eat that piece of chocolate cake, and there's sort of like I feel like I'm pure. I've done something really uh, kind of purifying, and I really feel good about it, and I step away from it, and it really works. I think one of the themes that is through your book is like just stop, think about it, be aware of how your body feels, all of those, you know, instead of just, and I think I mentioned this earlier, and just instead of reacting and not taking time. I think you mentioned breathe, yawn, play process and how that's helpful.
I just want to back up for 1 second because you make a very, very good point about how when you turn down whatever your food kryptonite is, you feel so good about yourself. You're like, wow, I did that. And what you want to do is you want to applaud yourself. And there's actually some absolutely fascinating research that, if you talk to yourself like you did it, that is so cool. And I know that may sound maybe trivial that like, hey, you didn't have that piece of cake, but I'm telling you, those moments add up
Yeah, those moments
to
do
good
add.
health.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what about this? Because this is a trend, this whole issue of weight, the weight gain, shaming, weight shaming or fat shaming, and that we shouldn't be talking about ourselves, well, maybe other people who are heavy or fat's not good for you. I mean, being overweight, healthy wise, is not good for you, but there's this whole, well, tell us how does what you're trying to do fit into all the weight
Yeah, I
shaming
mean,
stuff?
at first glance, you might think, well, this is a diet book, and it is. And you may think, well, what what I'm seeking to do is to make the point that we are not, you want to get to the weight that's best for your body. The last thing you want to do is shame anyone or shame yourself. I mean, one study was talking about how the people who spoke worst to themselves were, that they spoke worse to the worst. They spoke to themselves worse than their loved ones would. And so the last thing you want to do is to shame yourself. And there are techniques that basically, if you begin to feel ashamed, you can shower yourself with compassion. You can do, we talked about breathing earlier. You can do what I call the cortisol calming quickly. And you're just basically breathing into your diaphragm and you're saying, peace of mind is mine now. And then you breathe out from your diaphragm at saying, peace of mind is mine now again. But the last thing you want to do is shame yourself. You want, and there was some very interesting research that suggests that there is a trend now that people are more interested in shedding weight to feel better. And that is the point. No, you do not want to shame anybody the way they look. That is not what I am seeking to do. I am seeking to encourage people to embrace their bodies and themselves exactly where they are right now, and to begin to think of their bodies as just precious, precious vehicles. I mean, we only have one and only body. But that body will take us to where we want to go. It allows us to do what we want to do. And that's why we want to treat it with respect and admiration and appreciation.
What do you do, and I'm say with your children, like you have maybe a kid who is overweight and eating junk food, maybe not in your house, but in friend's house or wherever. How do you approach that without shaming them?
I mean, I think really some of the same tactics that you want to, you certainly do not want to shame them, and you don't want to tell them, oh, you got to lose weight. Again, you want to encourage them to begin to appreciate their bodies. So for instance, if you have kids, um, you could maybe go for a walk with them, or encourage them to learn to appreciate a sport, something that they can do with their body where they enjoy what they're doing and not focusing on the way it looks. And then making that connection between what you eat and how you will feel.
So you just want to sort of impart the same message that you
Yes.
yourself, hopefully, are following, and do that for your kid.
There was one study that I discovered. I mean, I discovered tons,
A lot of studies, yeah.
but there was one study, and it talked about how the way that your doctors speak to you, and that if the doctor has like this encouraging, upbeat attitude, that the patient will have greater success. And you can use that same principle with your kids.
I'm glad you brought that. It's interesting that you brought that up because I was interviewing a physician yesterday on the show. And it's one thing that I mentioned to him. I said, you really need to, as doctors, you need to praise or, give or recognize when your patients do well, what in terms of stuff with health and weight and that kind of thing. And doctors don't do that. They tend to just tell you what's wrong with you and you should be doing whatever you should be doing, but they don't praise you. And he said, I have been trying to do that and, encourage my medical students to do that too. And I think that's really important. Yes.
Yes, our doctors definitely should be rooting for this, for us. I even suggest in my book, I Blew My Diet Now What, that if your doctor is not respectful or puts you down for your weight, or is just, has this attitude where you feel ashamed or whatever, just ditch the doctor and find another one who is going to be more respectful of you.
Yeah. You have choices. Sometimes we feel we don't have the choice and we stick to,
I mean, just like you want to find the right partner, right? You
Right,
want to find
exactly.
You want to find the person with whom you connect. Well, it's the same thing with finding your doctor or your medical professional. You want to find a person who you connect with. I have this like amazing doctor. He's compassionate. He is encouraging. I went to him when I, had been eating badly, and I had to like confess that, oh my God, I'm an expert, and I completely fell off the wagon. And he was so, so, so encouraging of me. And that's the kind of doctor that you want to have.
Yeah.
One that's going to be your cheerleader in your corner to help you to achieve better health. While, yes, you shed the weight if you need to in order to feel better.
Okay, so you gained the 20 pounds.
21.
20, 21 pounds. Do you weigh yourself every day?
No, I do not. I do not. It's kind of, it's funny that you bring that up, because at that time, after I gained the weight, I was stepping on the scale a lot more than I do now. And once I started stepping on the scale, I was like, oh my God. Now, I don't know, maybe once every 2 weeks or whatever. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, I just don't, because your focus is on feeling good and having energy and being able to focus so you can do an interview with Voice America.
Well, that's good. I like that.
I mean, I'm
But you,
telling you, boy, one of the best ways to eat better is you write a book and you need to set an
right,
example.
exactly. You have to do appearances too. Um, but I'm getting back to the empowering thing because I really like that. And for me, I mean, everybody's different, I guess, I would assume, where that if I weigh myself every day, I feel empowered. If I don't, I get a little bit anxious. Like I don't really know where I'm at. And so, okay, I gained a pound. Okay. And now I have a goal. I want to lose that pound. But in terms of that empowering thing, I do find it empowering to weigh myself every day.
Well, I think we each have to find what works for us.
Yeah.
Now, at one point, yeah, after I'd gained the weight, I was weighing myself every day. Now, it's just it's not necessary. I don't need to. Oh, I have one little tip,
You
which is
are
that you
gorgeous and
literally
you don't have to worry about
one little tip, you hide the scale. So I have this bathroom scale. It is actually in a drawer on a towel, and you shut the drawer, and that scale is hidden. I have another one in another corner of the bathroom, and it's like hidden. But you I encourage people not to be, tied to that scale. The scale is not going to tell you as much as what your body will tell you
Mm.
when you get in tune with your body. If I eat junk, let's say I was awful and I ate a bunch of carbs today, my body would immediately react. I would know within minutes how I felt. The next day, I would feel it. The day after that, I would feel it. I would go through what I call the 3-day crud. So I encourage people to basically become in tune with your bodies. You know what works for your body, what foods work and what don't. And of course, you also can take allergy tests to discover if there are any foods to which you're particularly sensitive. But so, I mean, I just don't believe that people need to. Yeah, I think people are too tied to the scale. I'm not saying you are, Kathryn,
Oh,
but
well, I am. I think you're right. I mean, and especially, you definitely are right. And traveling is an issue too, because if there are no scales available, I mean, or there are, but they're not in my room, I get a little bit now, because I'm eating not what I eat at home. So there's a little bit of anxiety attached to that. But, I maintain my weight. That's not, it, unfortunately, I think as I've gotten older, it's easier. But yeah, so that is, traveling is another kind of putting myself in a different situation with no scale.
traveling is a big issue because people tend to throw their I guess you could say vigilance out the window in many instances. You're in an unknown city or another city. You're not near your home. You're not near the grocery store. You're not near your refrigerator. So that's why I encourage people to have a supply of some healthy snacks that they bring along with them. And then you can rely on those snacks when hunger does strike. Something that'll help you to you know, stay to your plan of eating better.
Okay, we have 2 minutes left. This is my last question. What about I'm going to, with my partner, he and I are going to Paris in 2 weeks. Am I supposed to
Ooh,
not eat?
fun.
I'm just, all right. How
That's a good one. Okay.
about that?
Um, what you could do if you choose to
Yes.
would be to do some planned cheating.
Hmm.
But please make sure to have ample protein. I mean, I think of Paris, okay, and I think of French bread.
Yeah.
I
Croissants.
think that amazing baguette
Hmm.
and butter. So you could do if you're not sensitive the way I am, I mean, I'm sensitive too, but you could plan that, hey, I'm going to have that French bread. But I'm going to make sure to have ample protein. And maybe I'll have the bread at lunch, but I'll skip the dessert. In other words, you can still watch yourself and still enjoy it, but always make sure to have enough ample protein and fats at the same time.
Okay. So that's good advice. And yeah, I could keep on. I have a lot of more questions for you, but everybody has to go out and get the book because there's so much in the book, and we've just covered a small sections of each part of the book. So Connie Bennett is the author. I Blew My Diet. Now what? The easy, proven 21-day plan to drop pounds and bounce back boldly. Give us a website and/or websites to go to for more information.
They can go to www.readibluemydiet.com.
Great.
So it's READI BLEW mydiet.com.
Great. Thanks so much for being on the show today. It was really fun.
Thank you so much for having me, Kathryn.